at some point, Australians will need to recognise what is and what is not Australian culture. You know, I think that the notion that all cultures and all religions and all worldviews are equal just needs to be tossed in the bin. You know, most people, you would hope, know that that's not the case, but until we dispose...
Now, when you have differences that you're not technically equal, right? But you do need a connection. See, when a couple gets together, they get together of what they assume they love and see. When they get to know each other a little bit more, they find out sometimes that they could be a better person or not as good as they believe to be. Right? As out in the real world, we, as a connection, sometimes need to be what we're not technically, as that helps us connect. Like some people who like to walk around naked, right, causes too much issues for their nakedness. So it's easier for them to just put on some clothes, please, for a connection, than have my kids pointing, having all these things said that unnecessary, as these areas haven't got the education, but they're going to be out in the public. So out in the public, you got to be righteous enough with certain education that you know what is appropriate to be out in that area of public, right? And that changes all the time as people change, so laws change and so on. So when it comes to understanding, if you're getting lost of people finding out where they should be and what's going on, you need to make sure that people speak the truth when it comes to feelings. So when it comes to feelings, the older you get and the more smarter you get, like some children, you will find that they might be able to learn of deceit, right, and hold in feelings as they know about embarrassments and stuff like that, right? And so the best way to change a culture is to start from the bottom and work your way up. And to get answers too, and a lot of scientists have found this out, here's where the saying comes in that children don't lie. There's a little sweet spot where children don't lie, right? They've learnt that they start learning like a 3-year-old, roughly 3 to 5, right? They start learning, they're in the learn phase. When they learn, they like it, it's new, it's exciting, it's a human thing, right? And when they're young, they're free and honest. And if you teach them right, these words, like I've talked about, that we get taught these things, but is it real in the real world, right? And a lot of cases it isn't, because people choose to be or not to be when it comes to the words and wisdom that we know. And so when we want to find out what is our culture, well, you go to a school, right? Because the adults are all mixed, they're coming and going. They might be just moved there, right? And so school kids are usually kids that are going to stay here, right? They're just starting to stay, or they're born here, right? The kids of the country, right? More likely he's going to cut out all the business workers and all the things that just come and go here, get little visas and all this kind of stuff, which, you know, might have a say and show opinions of what's out there, but it's not really, they're not the people, right? The people is the system, not what comes in and what's around, right? And so you ask the kids while they're in their honest stage. So usually in the younger stage, they're more honest, as they don't know all the information of deceit. And so you can get the information out of them and scare them before they get to too much information, and while they're honest, right? That's when kids are mostly honest. So the best way to get honesty out of certain questions is ask a 3 to a 5-year-old basic questions of connection and how they see things. As a 3-year-old and something that can talk could be out in public, and that's where you start off with the basic rules of connection, right? Of how that kid is going to see and grow up, because what we see, we may do, right? And cause problems and arguments and all that kind of stuff. So when it comes out to the public, and the public is connection, right? Because every man is their castle at home. You have different rules, as we've learnt all around the world. Same with countries. Countries is also a group's castle, right? And so we've got to learn, and if your group's castle is too mixed and stuff like that, here in Australia, we call it a mixed culture. So we're going to have the biggest problem when it comes to connection, as we've got more to connect. So the more things and more cultures you got here that you wanted here and you got in here, and bigger of those numbers, the more that you have to connect, as the bubbles can affect other bubbles as they get bigger. one little thing doesn't hurt. It's a little bit like the grasshopper thing. He's throwing your thing at you. That didn't hurt, did it? Did that hurt? No, that didn't hurt. How about this? All these cultures, all these big bubbles. Did that hurt? To what you believe should be Australia, right? And so that gets mixed. What happened to Australia? Where was Australia before they got all this mix? When they got the mix, how big was the mix, right? When they first spoke about Australia's rules and the songs we have and stuff like that. Do you believe we're more mixed today with these bigger bubbles? I believe we are. And so when another culture comes to another person's home, so it's like a home ground and stuff like that, right? They're meant to respect more, right? So when someone comes to your house, you say to them as a connection, you respect my rules. You got the rules, and you got these rules at home. Take your shoes off, this and that and this. If you don't like it, you'll find we won't get along. I'll say not to come around, as you're not respecting my rules. And if you don't like my rules, then we wouldn't connect, and that's a good thing, right? That's how we find a difference, as long as there's no violence or me infiltrating your life. So as long as at home they're doing what they're doing there, they're not going out to the street with the words they're saying, or they're running around naked out there, right? They're just doing it in their own home. They doing it not around kids as well. So when it comes to beings growing up, they have the similar rule that we have for the public of how you should act around a child, right? So when it comes to children, you should be acting appropriate just like you would act in public. So you'd be polite, nice, and not be rude and hurting people and stuff like that. And that's how we get along. And if we can't get along in those areas, we have other bubbles, which is why we need differences as we learn. You need differences, right? They can go to that bubble. That's why it's good to have different countries, because they might just have a slight difference in this and that, and a different preference. Not everyone thinks that dude looks pretty. Not everyone likes strawberries, right? And so differences is good. You wouldn't want to become exactly one, right? But you need to become one in connection. To become one in connection, we can all have different arts, different religions, right? If they like it, they're there. If you find out they're forced, well, you debate that they're forced. You debate what they are. And if they're forced there, then we know all the rest around the world that we've got a problem about forcing people, which what we do at the moment, which is a big issue, right? But which way do you want to head? And you ask the world that. And collectively, we actually answer that answer at the moment, right? Collectively, where are we heading? Apparently, we could be heading to World War III nuclear disaster, which is true, right? Polluting and damaging and having wrecks with leaks everywhere and all sorts of stuff. But we create it. And we create it over what? Is it in need? Is it because of your ego? Is it because of greed? Is it because they just looked at you funny, right? And they've got all these problems. Where does the problem lie at? Is why do we have religion? To show people where problems, it's not worth it, right? Certain people will say, well, that guy was an asshole. He said a nasty word. You can go over there and say the word back, or you can feel like you need to get an upper and say not 5 words back, but go over there, give him a word back and punch him in the fucking face, right? And believe that he deserved that, as people might do it, right? And he took a risk. Does that mean he deserves it? No, it doesn't. Because you should only give at least back at the start what you received, right? And a one-off thing, two-off thing, you should be calm enough to be able to accept that a few times. What's a calm, relaxed human? Do it a few times, then after a while, then you can start mentioning, hang on, you're starting to do this, you want to do this, rah, 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 rah. It's a little bit taking your time, thinking about what's going on, and then moving, right? And that's the same with connection. And so I believe with kids, you can ask kids at schools in all sorts of areas, you can do a test here, about what they believe connection is. As when racist things was happening in America, kids didn't see it. Why didn't kids see that blacks shouldn't be able to go in the pub? Perhaps because they're all in a different bubble? Because the kids didn't have the same problem as the adults? Now, why didn't the kids have the same problem as the adults when the adults are teaching them? Did the kids have free will? Has the kids not got the knowledge to work out some stupid thing in their mind that they might believe is happening? Means they don't assume as much, because assumptions come with more knowledge. The more knowledge you have of things, the more you can assume on things. Right? Where do we lose the basics? That's the biggest key for the world connection, is the basics. Right? You go, you're this, you're that, and it's going to take time at first, but first you say, this is what we're going to do. Right? And we're going to need leaders to do that. That's how you get a change. It's from the more higher to the top, the bigger the change. So if there was a UN world connection, whatever, or all get together, that's where you need to go if you want the change for everybody. You want change just for your bubble, or you want to start from a bubble, because it's good to show humans like to experiment. So if you ever go to try something, a country could be the first to try it, and if it works, or they can try another different way, and they go, we'll head this way of how we're going to do this rule and that, and that's what we do. It's as long as we don't affect and harm and do things just for profit. Right? It should be always righteous first, connection, and then with righteous, what is the righteous profit? And if you do that around the world, you'll find that everybody, it'll go with quality, the material, and it's paid. So if anyone can make the same thing, if whoever makes this, they all get the same price. Same material, same thingo, it's got made, same way as them, dude made it, maybe it's got a little line over here, a little bit different, so on, but it's the same. So when I sell that, I should be able to get it like the other country sells. Pretty much, not too far difference, right? As sales go up and down with demand. We have demand, but also demand of what type of materials, right? And so when you have all different materials, a lot of countries like to make different materials. They like to have different screws, so you need their screw